button. I'm hitting the button. Hello, and welcome to The Pouch, the podcast equivalent of forgetting the Netflix password that takes a not-so-serious look at the week in Australian news and politics. I'm Greg. We warned you relentless lockdowns would lead you down a slippery slope, savage.
Greg, one day I'm going to marry a slippery slope. One day I'm going to marry a slippery slope argument. It's one of my life ambitions. But yes, I'm Jake. We need a Pouch, the podcast levy to fund stuff. Far Wharton. On today's episode, we talk vaccines, aged care, political lines, and Greg, so very much more.
And in the spirit of reconciliation and recognition, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which Jake and I are podcasting today. We recognise their continuing connection to land, water and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging.
And this week our thoughts are with Australia's Premier.
Yeah.
Daniel Andrews, who's taken a mighty fall down some slippery stairs while getting ready for work. He's in ICU for a couple of days at least, while he recovers. Several broken ribs, a smashed vertebrae. Yeah, that's tough stuff.
And I don't want to get all like conspiracy theory this early in the show.
Yeah, you better not.
But those tweets were very well written. Like they would have perfect grammar, perfect capitalization, perfect punctuation, everything.
Yeah, you're saying they're not the sort of tweets sent by someone who has, accepted their body weight in morphine in the last couple of hours. Is what you're saying?
That's. I mean, I'm not a doctor, nor am I a tweet expert, a tweet spurt, right? Yeah. But
back in the day, Greg, when a lawyer would dictate something or a doctor would dictate something, and their secretary would take the dictation, the last line of the dictation of the letter that eventuated out of that would read, "Dictated but not read by, Dr. Smits."
Right. Yeah,
that's what those tweets were missing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
dictated
odd,
but not read.
Yeah, you can certainly imagine that it was Daniel Andrews sitting there with a phone going, better capitalize that word and that word and that word. But anyway, yes, our thoughts to go with there. And I think we need to mention the farmers too, Jake. I've read a lot this week about farmers and how they're really struggling. However, we do have some record profits too. So apparently not all bad news. $66 billion in profits or something this year in the farming industry, which is a record profit. But still, I know a lot of people are doing it tough out there, especially considering cyclones and droughts and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
still
depends on the industry, depends on the region. Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, well, no, it's bananas, Jake, is what it is.
Yeah, well, also nuts. I was talking specifically about, macadamias, almonds,
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do love those. Apparently, we're going to be paying an arm and a leg for bananas soon, so that's good times.
Yep. Is that formal currency?
Yeah,
yeah. We're slipping into other currencies,
metric,
other values now. Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah, okay, right. That's what happens when you move from imperial to metric. You can't figure out the values. That'll be an arm and a leg. Oh, geez. Okay.
I know. Anyway, it's very confusing. Look, Jake, it is a Tuesday night, which may confuse some of our listeners or none of our listeners who actually pay attention to when we decide to release a podcast, but we do still do it technically once a week. We've just had massive weeks on both of our parts, and not only that, it's just been so huge in the news as well. So we do have a lot to get through, but I appreciate you taking the time to still squeeze in a mighty podcast, Jake. A mighty podcast.
I appreciate you doing the same.
We
appreciate each other.
Yeah, I think so. And thank you to all those people who left comments and things on our YouTube channel this week. If you want to check us out on there, we are on there. You can check us out on YouTube by typing in The Pouch the Podcast. You can head to thepouchthepodcast.com. You can go to the socials. You can do all those sorts of things. Yep. And Jake, a quick one for our thing?
Yeah, why not? Yeah. If you could also go to patreon.com/The Pouch the Podcast, that would be amazing. We have plenty of subscription type of values available. I've got a $1 a month, a $5 a month, a $10 a month, and lots of stuff in between those. And it helps to contribute to the continued operation of this show.
It does.
And of course, if you're not ready for that level of intimacy, you don't think that we're worthy of that level of value that immediately. We get it. But it would be mighty helpful if you could support the show by going to your podcast player of choice and leaving us a favorable review. makes us feel all warm and fuzzy.
It does.
It does.
And speaking of warm and fuzzy, Jake,
my hair, your beard,
my beard, yeah. So
warm
if you
and
turn
fuzzy.
us upside down, Jake and I look like each other.
We're a complete person.
That's right. Okay, the way the show works, we do a couple of stories about a warm up, then we get into some federal politics, and then maybe a little bit of state politics. Plenty of federal politics going around this week. If you've listened the last couple of weeks, we've touched on the fact that we don't touch on the any of the allegations or any of the controversies happening around Canberra at the moment in regards to any rape allegations or anything like that. So we used to just say the Brittany Murphy.
No, not
situation.
Brittany Higgins.
Brittany Higgins, sorry, the Brittany Higgins situation. But now, obviously, it's escalated from that. But we don't touch on that on this show because we can't do it justice.
It's not because we don't believe.
That's right.
The women making the allegations. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just that those are serious topics, and we're not so seriously podcast, and those topics deserve a lot more seriousness. And that we simply can't do that justice.
Absolutely. But speaking of not serious topics, Jake's Nazis.
Yeah.
Certainly a topic we can make light of now. It's been a little while.
Yeah.
So
let's. Too soon, Greg. Too soon. Yeah. No,
all right,
it is. It's still there, but sorry, I realized you were trying to do a segue.
That's all right. This is your warm up, Jake. What is fashion? What is fashion?
Yes. What is fashion? That's a great question. It's a question that I think people have been asking for decades, if not centuries, if not millennia, Greg.
Well, you know what?
What is fashion?
I can tell you what fashion is.
Yeah. What is fashion?
Fashion is an aesthetic expression at a particular period and place and in specific context of clothing, footwear, lifestyle, accessories, makeup, hairstyle.
Well, we answered the question. Which is good.
Done.
I'll probably tell you.
And body proportions. In its everyday use, the term implies a look defined by the fashion industry, which is the look of the moment. What is called fashioned is thus that which is made available and popular by fashion systems.
Yeah,
including industry and media. That's
who knew that such a comprehensive definition for what is fashion was available at the drop of a hat. Like, who knew that? Who knew that? I mean, I think everyone who has ever been to dictionary.com probably. But
do you want to do what is art?
Yeah. Let's not do that one because I'll still object. Yes, but look, quite interestingly, a face mask. The things that we've all been wearing from sort of intermittently from time to time, which is what intermittently means. Don't know why I repeated that. The face masks. There's been an interesting print that has been made and made publicly available in Westfield, in Miranda, in New South Wales. The face mask has been printed with Nazi imagery, including swastikas and the Reichsstadter, the Imperial Eagle. So it was in a Sydney mall, Sydney mall of all places, Greg, on a mannequin. It was very quickly
on display,
removed.
like it wasn't just someone wearing it.
No, exactly. Yeah, it was on display in a shop counter, in a shop window.
Right.
It was So when I saw it, I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Well, somebody's been walking around in a mall. Some Nazi wannabe has been walking around. No, it wasn't that. Somebody put thought and preparation into this. Not just the purchasing, but also the placement on a mannequin in this mall in Sydney. So yes, a spokesperson said, quote, "As soon as the centre was made aware, the team spoke with the retailer and it was immediately removed." Westfield Miranda did not respond to questions about whether the mask display was a mistake or intentional and whether the store had made the mask or purchased it elsewhere. But yes, lots of horror from shoppers.
A lot of things had to fall into place for that to happen. Like someone had to go, this is what I'm going to make. This is what I'm going to put on the mask, and then I've got to find someone who's buying it. Then the retailer had to go and buy it, and then put it on the mannequin. Like there's a lot that had to fall into place for that to happen. Anyway, certainly not something that anyone should be wearing around, Jake.
No, exactly.
I'm sure
was it Hugo Boss that made Nazi uniforms during the during World War II?
Why not?
I think it was.
Yeah,
it was one of the major ones. But it's quite interesting.
It is quite interesting. Now, Brandon Payne has joined in the chat, Jake. He says, "I like how you all sneeze. I don't know whether that's a Nazi joke or if it's about the video."
Yes, the video.
Yeah,
I dare say.
our popular
If they've joined
video.
us from YouTube.
Yeah. And he said, hello, and where are we all located? We are located in Japan. So thanks for joining us. We're the Pouch the Podcast. We do Australian news and politics from
Japan.
From Japan. Yep. The last video, Snow, you were all sneezing. Yes. Everyone's seen that video, Brandon. Thank you for reminding us about that. It's lucky we've got that one. Thanks for finding us from the sneeze video. Now, Jake, my story is about loneliness. Charles Purcell, writing for the Sydney Morning Herald, has brought to light a couple of interesting things, and I actually heard an interview with him the other day. It was very fascinating. Now, what he is proposing is that we have a minister for loneliness here in Australia, and I'll get to what that looks like in a second, what the minister for loneliness might do. He writes that, this is for the Sydney Morning Herald, Charles Purcell writes, confronted by a rise in suicides amid the COVID-19 pandemic, Japan has just appointed its first minister for loneliness. He said, I hope to carry out activities to prevent social loneliness and isolation and to protect ties between people, says the new minister. It also came off the back of Britain allocating a loneliness minister. So Japan and Britain have a loneliness minister. And it says in Britain, the Minister for Loneliness was saddened to learn it was a problem, not only for the old, but for also the young, as it is in America and no doubt in Australia. Contrary to the stereotype...
Wait, that sounds like that was the first time that they discovered that loneliness is bad.
Well, I mean, they're politicians, Jake. They're very busy people,
But I just love the idea of a minister, somebody who is, they're representing the will of the people, not just the will of the people, but also the people of their constituency. Yeah. And they've just discovered that loneliness is bad.
Well, I think it's about that stereotype, right? The idea that loneliness is associated with older people, but younger people can also feel loneliness, and people feeling a lot lonely when there's a lot of people around. Now, some facts, Jake. Some facts about loneliness in Australia.
Like it.
Yeah, 1 in 4 Australian adults are lonely. That's a quarter, Jake.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Statistically, it is.
It is. I mean, statistically speaking. 1 in 2 Australians report feeling lonely for at least a day in the previous week. That's half, Jake.
Yes, 50%.
50% of people feel lonely. Well, I think I've got a solution, Jake.
Yeah.
You get the half of the people who
combine the
lonely.
quarter
That's right.
with the half, and nobody feels lonely. 1 in 2
Australians sometimes or always feel lonely. 1 in 3 Australians never or rarely feel part of a group or friends. That's 33%, 33.33 recurring, Jake. I don't know whether.
And I'm the
recurring.
0.3.
I know. 1 in 4, it's a quarter again. The same quarter. Don't feel they have a lot in common with people around them. 1 in 5, rarely or ever feel close to people. Rarely or never feel they have someone to talk to, and don't feel they have people they can turn to. So I found this very fascinating. And then I thought to myself, well, what does a minister for loneliness actually do?
Door knocking.
It's a good question.
Yeah. Is that in that same dictionary that you were looking at earlier?
Absolutely. Yeah. So they urge businesses to support employees with mental health concerns.
Oh, yes, good.
It's good advice.
Yeah.
Tapping government departments.
Businesses.
I don't know.
Think about mental health concerns.
Yeah, and community groups for help. Tapping into government departments and community groups for help, and encouraging people to build connections to their communities. Which you think, okay, well that's pretty obvious advice, but at the same time, I do think that building connections to communities is a bit of a skill. Like you have to learn where to look, you have to learn, how to narrow that down. You have to learn the age groups of the people. You have to learn whether or not you'll be welcome there, all that sort of stuff. So, the interesting approach. I initially started listening to the interview, having a bit of a laugh, and then came out of it going, actually, this is a really good idea. And Queensland is a little bit ahead of us. In Queensland, a parliamentary inquiry now aims to address loneliness after COVID-19 lockdowns left many feeling isolated. But it was back in 2018 that Australian MP Fiona Patten in the Victorian Parliament proposed that her state should get its own minister for loneliness. That was well before the pandemic lockdowns in Victoria. Perhaps now is a good time to take Patten up on that idea, whether in state or federal governments. Anyway, I found that very, very fascinating. I think I tried to find the actual statistic, and I couldn't find it, but it was some phenomenal amount of people in nursing homes, and we're going to get to our aged care situation in a moment, who don't have anyone ever come and visit them, not for a birthday, not for a special day, no family members, no one comes and visits them. So it was some huge amount. I don't want to betray the
Don't
podcast.
want to bum us out so early.
No.
I'm with you. Having had some grandparents, pass away in nursing homes. We tried to go there as often as we possibly could to be with that grandparent, but invariably, or that great grandparent in one case. But you go there and you still see that there are plenty of very, very lonely people there, and you get to know the residents. As you bring them a cupcake when you're coming in to see your grandparent. It's just, you just feel it's heartbreaking.
It is. It's a very overwhelming situation. And like I said, we'll get to our aged care little situation in a second. One last statistic, just to pump us up. Research findings that prolonged isolation had been estimated to shorten the lifespan by 15 years. This is the equivalent in impact to being obese or smoking 15 cigarettes per day. So there you go.
Okay. I don't feel good about that statistic.
No, it's a terrible statistic.
Yeah.
It's really quite sad. But anyway, I kudos to Charles Purcell for writing for the Sydney Morning Herald. Check it out.
So you said it was Japan and the UK.
Yeah, Japan, UK.
Just created ministers for loneliness.
Yeah, and Victoria has talked about having a minister for loneliness, and Queensland has done an inquiry into loneliness. It's really quite fascinating. I'll put the link in the description below for a few things, because there was the Queensland one in particular actually has some really nice summaries that are easy to digest. Brandon Payne on the chat is going off, Jake.
Look, I don't blame him at all. Is he feeling lonely?
I don't know.
We're happy to alleviate some of that loneliness.
Well, hopefully we are. I mean, look, the chances are that 1 in 3 of us are lonely, Jake. So it's either Brandon, you, or me. Have you?
Sorry. I think it was 1 in 4.
Was it? Well, yeah, probably. All right. Well, we need a fourth person to join the chat. Have you all considered getting the vaccine shot for the COVID? We can answer that one quickly. Yes.
Go!
Yeah. Go. You haven't got yours already, have you?
No.
No. That's good. I was surprised to get a message today that said only 0.3% of the population have got their vaccine.
Yeah, but that's because we're in 1A, which is a defined group of people. Very defined group of people. In 1B, it's still a defined group of people, it's slightly larger. But 1A was all about health professionals, the frontline workers, the hotel quarantine, aged care. It was very defined group of not an enormous number of people, because we have to organize our systems, we have to organize the rollout. We have to organize fridge. Look, we have to organize fridges. Minus 70 fridges everywhere.
I do love that. One of the criticisms for our vaccine rollout has been related to New Zealand's rollout, in that we don't vaccinate the families of the Border Patrol people.
Yeah, look, that made a lot of sense. New Zealand is vaccinating the family, the immediate family of them. Yeah.
But that
makes a lot of sense.
Once they did the 4 people on Border Patrol, that was 50% of their population. All right, but Jake, we are going to be struggling a little bit with getting our vaccine rollout happening, as Italy has created a decision, Jake, they haven't created a decision. They've made a decision to block 250,000 doses of COVID vaccine from Australia. It wasn't a hostile act. It was a fantastic act on their part. Kudos to them for doing that. Very well thought out strategically, and they're well within their rights to do that. Prove me wrong.
I won't. I'll get behind the Italians. As the resident Italian on the podcast, Greg, I'll tell you that all Italians deserve. No, look, Italy was one of the countries.
I'm quarter Maltese. What does that mean?
Look, we're just going to leave you out of the conversation.
Fair enough.
Barely all that you have is a little tiny island. Okay, let's not. No. It's quite interesting. The Italian government have petitioned the European Union to reserve 250,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine that were destined to come to Australia. They petitioned the EU and said, we needed to keep the vaccine here. No. Oh, no. Jake, how could you do it? Oh, no.
That's so good.
Okay,
I'm leaving it in.
I'm Italian, Greg.
Okay.
No, essentially, essentially, they petitioned the EU and they've been able to reserve that. Italy was very quick to point out this is not a malicious act. You may recall that Italy was one of the countries that was initially hit extraordinarily hard. They had a massive infection rate, an enormous death rate, just some harrowing stories. You may recall during the national lockdown of Italy, in some of the more crowded cities, they had balconies filled with people playing music with each other, doing yoga on the balcony. It was an amazing time of solidarity, and of course, with Australia not so affected currently by COVID, except for the various lockdowns that are preventing the spread of it. We don't necessarily need, I mean, that's maybe a big call, but we don't necessarily potentially need that. We don't necessarily need the vaccine as badly as a country like Italy that has not done what Australia has done in terms of keeping it out.
Right. So they just kept it, right? Is that the idea? There's no
no
sort of rhyme or reason to it.
250,000. Yeah, I mean, look, essentially there was these 250,000 doses that were just about to hop on the back of a plane, about to hop in a plane on their way to Australia, and pretty well. I think it was RAAF. They'd keyed it up, and it was blocked essentially.
Right. What do they have? Like big eskies?
They do. They have eskies with self-contained refrigeration. They're dry ice bricks. One interesting thing, though, Greg, the Oxford vaccine. One of the reasons why Australia invested early in the Oxford vaccine, the AstraZeneca vaccine, was because we had manufacturing capacity for that type of vaccine in Australia. And interestingly enough, I believe it was last week.
John, my friend John, has converted his little mini home brewing station into a vaccine distribution center.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I don't know. I'm not a scientist, Jake.
Are you saying people should come over, get
in contact with John?
Have a brew.
Yeah,
have a
we
brew
just do it
and
right
get
there.
a vaccine.
Yeah,
have a brew with your bro and get a vaccine.
But it's got a sticker on it that says AstraZeneca.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. Is that just his label? He's just calling it the AstraZeneca beer.
Yeah, I think it's his band.
Yeah. Yeah, love it. Okay. So the TGA has just approved the Australian-made version of the version. It's the same vaccine, but yes. Oh, I love it. Left channel. The TGA has approved it, so we could start manufacturing it and sending it around Australia.
That's
How
great.
Exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So they can keep their 250,000 because we can make it here.
Yeah, it delays our rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
So this time next week, it was like 0.4% of people.
It will steadily climb, thankfully, but it will take time. Yeah.
All right. One of the things, Jake, that I've been very proud of Australia about has been that we haven't had the sort of political divide that America had in regards to everything related to coronavirus. Right. The left over there seemed to portray a bit of a monopoly on things that we might have considered quite normal. So they might have said, well, masks and social distancing and closing businesses down and lockdowns, all these things are actually quite good towards getting rid of the coronavirus. And the right over there were a bit like, no, you can't shut things down and blah, blah, blah. No, but, there's decent arguments for both sides. However, one's very wrong. But here we didn't have that. We had a lot of bipartisan support for a lot of the initiatives being shown by both government and businesses. However, it does seem that Australian attitudes on the COVID-19 vaccine have differed along political lines. Is that right? Am I right about that, Jake? Am I reading that headline correctly?
You are reading that correctly. Correct. I couldn't say it twice.
Are you saying it correctly, Jake?
No. But you are correct with your statement. An exclusive survey on COVID-19 vaccine in Australia, Greg, has found stark differences in attitudes depending on a person's political persuasion. What one expert describes as part of a, quote, concerning trend seen in the US as in parts of Europe, as you suggested. The survey, which was carried out by Vox Pop Labs for the ABC, they run the yearly youth survey or survey of their youth, something classic. Like the Voice of Australia, I think they call it.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, it took place over 5 days from February 21st, the day before Australia's vaccine rollout kicked off. It canvassed 1,376 people, Greg. That's most of Australia.
That's a huge percent.
Yeah.
That's a million percent.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, these 1,376 people weighed in to represent a nationally representative sample of the Australian population. It found the vast majority of Australians will take the vaccine, and most believe it is safe. But experts say that there are some worrying trends, Greg. As Australia's vaccine rollout slowly gathers pace.
Low-waisted pants.
Yes, it's a big
worrying trend.
Worrying trend.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really fluoro tennis shoes.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
That is a worrying trend, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. Skin tight jeans. Nah, they're okay.
I think they've been around for a while.
Yep. But yes, as Australia's vaccine rollout slowly gathers pace with the first jabs of the AstraZeneca vaccine taking place in South Australia on Friday. The survey found that 72% of Australians are, quote, very likely to get the COVID-19 vaccine, the highest level since ABC started asking Australian populations back in April of 2020. But interestingly enough, Greg, there seemed to have been some division on whether or not people would get the vaccine, and that division was based along very political lines, Greg.
Okay, so let me guess.
Yeah.
The more you were likely to vote Liberal, the less likely you were to say that you were going to get the vaccine. Or the more likely you were a conservative voter.
Yep.
Yes?
Essentially, the further right you identified
yes.
with your political persuasion,
I'm imagining a
further
scatter
on the
plot.
Political right,
yes,
the more likely you were to get to not get a vaccine, to reject the vaccine, which is quite interesting because one thing that has been noted for some significant portion of time is that while the Green Party does not necessarily have a anti-vaccine bent, in fact, they absolutely don't. Many of the former members have been, former leaders have been GPs and similar. They do attract a certain crowd of people,
right?
And they do quite often identify with the anti-vaccine bent. So yes,
really?
Quite interesting that it was actually the further right from centre rather than the further left. In fact, the further left from centre you are, the more likely you are to get the vaccine.
Right. Well, there you go. That's an easy way
left.
to tell people's political persuasions, isn't it?
Yeah. Are you going to get the vaccine?
Yes.
Now I know how you vote.
Right. Righto. Why don't you go and buy a fish and chip shop? Right. That's all I got. That was better than the joke I had in my head.
Oh, what was that one? Maybe we should canvass it.
No. I'll put it on the whiteboard of bad ideas.
Okay.
Now, Brandon Payne, he's going off of the chat. He does say, "Is the vaccine pricey over here?" No, Brandon Payne.
Yes, it is very pricey.
The
zero universal healthcare.
Zero. Yep.
I mean, we will pay
socialists.
For it,
there are a bunch of we haven't taken the vaccine shot yet. You have to look into the Australian rollout, Brandon. Go to health.gov.au for more information on the Australian vaccine rollout. We've got a rollout, and it seems to be happening, give or take 250,000 doses.
Of the AstraZeneca. We do pay for it, obviously. It's just we pay for it in our taxes and potentially, Greg, you might say our levies.
Levies. Oh, I do love a levy. I don't know why I went British. I know why I went British because I said dough instead of do, and I had to roll with it. So we do love a good levy, Jake, in Australia. And one of those levies, that is one of the ideas that is happening for our aged care system. Is that where we're going with this? Was that a setup?
Yes. Yeah, it was absolutely a setup.
Yeah. Now, if I've got this right, and you'll get into some details in a second, but the levy idea actually comes from two. The aged care report was done by two people. Yep. Yeah, is that right? And they couldn't agree.
There was a couple of aged care commissions, but there were two groups. I don't know whether it was two people or two groups.
And they couldn't agree.
Definitely two groups. Yeah.
But what they did agree on was that it needed to be funded, but they just didn't agree on where the funding was coming from. But one of those ideas is a levy.
Yes, exactly. But they also, I mean, it's really quite interesting. They couldn't agree on how the funding would eventuate, and they couldn't necessarily agree on what needed to be funded. what they could agree on is that it needed to be funded.
Well, look, I'll tell you what, that the government will have no shortage of experts in this field. And I'm not being sarcastic here. I'm talking about, like, every time I've turned on the radio to listen to an interview about the Aged Care Royal Commission release findings, or an interview on the television, there has been some really, really intelligent people. I'm not being sarcastic. The really intelligent people have really thought about this. Like, there is a lot of information out there about how... Like, basically, people are saying, we know exactly what we need to be doing. Like, we know exactly what we need to be doing. We just need to be given the go-ahead to go and do it. And we can fix a lot of these problems in quite a short amount of time. So, it will take time. But there's a lot of people ready and willing to go. It does feel like, from the outside looking in, that the government is the one sort of umming and ahhing. But give us some details, Jake. What's happening here? Why?
It's quite interesting. So I launched off with the levy because, when Australia recognised that we were going to have a significant shortfall in terms of funding for the federal budget for health. Most of the federal budget for health comes from sort of general revenue, and it's attracted through tax and various other taxes and some more taxes. But there was a significant shortfall. And the way that the government at the time decided that they would address that is through a Medicare levy, which we all pay as citizens over the age of, I think, 18.
Yes.
We all pay a Medicare levy. And it's exciting, Greg. What that means is that we can, to Brendan's point earlier, it means that we can access public hospitals throughout the country. It means that we can access, many drugs that are on the pharmaceutical benefit scheme.
Super cheap,
at a highly subsidised rate. We can access GP services based on a single payer system. And sometimes a co-pay system, depending on how pricey or ritzy your GP is. So anyway, all of that was enabled through a levy. And as you say, there was this Aged Care Royal Commission. It found that 1 in 3 aged care residents are receiving substandard care. That was massive. It was a massive finding. If you listen to any of the reports out of that, or watched any of the reports out of that, some of the testimony that was given was beyond harrowing. It's the sort of stuff that you would not wish on your worst enemy. It's the sort of stuff that you would certainly not wish on your family member.
Nice. Well said, Jake. Well said.
Yeah. So the final report is now out. It has been released, and it is signalling that a massive investment is required to improve care after really 2 decades of efficiency dividends, which is a great way of saying cost cutting. Greg.
Yeah, whoever that is.
Yep.
Yeah. Join the chat.
Yes. If you could pipe up there, Greg. Yes. The total amount in deficit or in efficiency dividends is around $9.8 billion.
Yeah.
So that's how much money essentially needs to be made up. In comparable economies, comparable economies will spend around 2.5% of their GDP, of their gross domestic product, of the amount of money that country makes in revenue on aged care. Yeah. In Australia, we spend about 1.3%. So a lot of economists have been remarking, and some of the people working on this Aged Care Royal Commission remarked that's a great place to start. That gap between what other countries pay and what we pay for aged care, that's potentially a great start. And a levy may be the way to go through it. But the federal government has instead responded with an initial injection of $452 million.
Yes. And what does that get me?
A comprehensive review of these. No, essentially, Scott Morrison promised a comprehensive response with further funding to address what he called as the Commission's call for a generational paradigm shift to a needs-based funding system, which is an interesting one. And if a needs-based system essentially says you have this need, and we are going to standardize you as an individual, right, and we're going to make sure that every individual gets the same, at least the same. But if you are in a
is that similar to the NDIS?
It is a little bit. I think they also, as part of this, one of the things that the Aged Care Royal Commission pointed out was that there can be great care in a city, and there can be awful care in a city, and there can be,
it boils down to luck, from what I've heard from a lot of people's experiences,
in
right?
many ways,
like,
and the providers methods for bringing in money. Either way, the intention here that the commissioners set out was that there needs to be a patient-centric or person-centric funding model. So the funding needs to be focused on the individual in aged care and not on the aged care providers, which is how it has currently been funded.
Yeah, and if I've got it right, didn't something change a little while ago, and the providers of aged care didn't actually have to disclose where their money was going or what they were spending their money on in some regard? I think it was like a specific thing that they didn't have to report on.
I don't think that's not a recent change. That's been there for a significant amount of time.
Right,
They don't have to say where the money goes. The money should be going to the care of the individuals. And that includes nursing, nursing staff, as well as assistants in nursing, and non-nursing individuals that do other work. So orderlies, etc. But it was quite interesting. It was quite interesting to read the patient to staff ratios, particularly of skilled clinical staff. If you've been into an aged care home recently, you will find it difficult quite often to find a nurse in the less intensive care areas. It's amazing considering the comorbidities of the individuals often in that high dependency area. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, look, it really is a depressing situation, isn't it? Because we really want to be looking after those people who have gone before us and who have put in the hard yards to make sure that we're living a fantastic life. From a philosophical perspective, looking after your aged people seems to be a very positive way to make sure you don't have a blight on your conscience as a country. I think it's almost like saying, well, you could measure how confident you are as a country and your own moral compass with how well you look after your aged people. So I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of countries who do it better than us, and hopefully we can get some of those down. But there's lots and lots of suggestions out there for how we can make this happen. Getting nurses, far more nurses on board, making aged care attractive to be a part of, paying people more to be part of aged care, making sure that there's more employees so that people don't have to work as many hours,
and qualified employees,
increasing their education if they're already a part of that sector. So many really great suggestions. So it'll be interesting to see what the government does with this. Considering all the other stuff that we're not covering on this podcast, they have a bit of a way to present themselves, don't they, politically speaking?
They certainly do.
Yeah, and sort of say, well, we can do this, this, and this, and we're not all this. We're not all bad. But it'll be interesting to see what sort of approach the government takes.
Yes, once they're very clear on what actually needs to be funded, what actually needs to change, it'll be interesting to see how they approach that. I would say, Greg, it was quite interesting when Scott Morrison announced the Aged Care Royal Commission findings, the final report. He did an announcement. And essentially the journalists were completely unable to quiz the Prime Minister on any aspects of the Aged Care Royal Commission report because he released it pretty well immediately before, or the night before. To quote from one of the journalists, quote, "This report was delivered last Friday. You gave us half an hour to attend a press conference. You tabled a report when we were here. How can we ask questions to know what is relevant in the report without knowing what's in it?"
Yes.
And the Prime Minister responded, "There will be plenty of opportunities to ask questions, but we're before you now. This isn't the only day to ask questions. I'm telling you that we're releasing the report.
Yeah. He's straight to the point, isn't he, ScoMo? There's no beating around the bush. There's no rhetoric.
No, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this was all rhetoric. It was all, it was all, we're announcing an announcement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Controlling the narrative.
Speaking of controlling the narrative, Jake, I heard an interview. My microphone's gone. I heard an interview with John Howard this week, former Australian Prime Minister John Howard. It was pretty interesting. You know, you look at them differently, don't you, politicians, once they're out of politics?
Yes, with a certain reverence. You know, if they actually leave politics.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, I'm sure there's still some deep, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who harbour some deep hatred for the man. But, you know, I found it interesting regardless. I mean, he's a former Australian Prime Minister and he was around for, was it 11 years? You know, he did that job and, it's just
17, I thought.
Was it 17? Yeah. And yeah.
Well, that was as Prime Minister. He was a cabinet minister and a backbencher for significant. It must have been about 30 plus years.
Yeah. So he was served from 1996 to 2007. He was the Australian Prime Minister. So yeah, pretty full on. Yeah. Anyway, a really, really fascinating interview. I heard that on the Week in Politics or something. It's called the podcast. But anyway, interesting. That why did I think of that? I thought of that because So he was talking about the GST, and when he presented that to the Australian public, he said that that when they went to the election, they actually had everything laid out for how they were going to introduce the GST, and they took it to the Australian people, and they lost a few seats here and there, but they ended up winning that particular election, albeit with a few less seats. And I just thought, gosh, that's refreshing, isn't it? You know, to have that sort of policy out there. Maybe that's the approach that this government could take in regards to the Aged Care Commission and its reports, and the idea of a levy, like saying, okay, well, let's all gather around and let's all do this properly. Here is what we propose. Here's a policy. Here's something that's very important to us as a nation right now. And here is also something that will be important to you individually in the future. Here's how we're going to do it. Let's take that to the election. I think that would be an interesting approach. Probably a good one, given the circumstances
I think so.
At the moment. Yeah.
coming forward with policies. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean,
well, we know that too many policies don't do you any favours, right? That's what happened to Labor in the last election. Why not one really good policy that everyone is talking about at the moment, you know? You know, who knows? Anyway, call me, PR people.
Yeah. We will rectify your message.
Yeah, absolutely. Have we missed a story here, Jake? No, that's it. We've got the state story now. You want to spin the wheel?
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Okay. Ready?
I still don't
3, 2, 1,
tinkle, spinning show.
Tinkle. It landed on, I love it, Foom, South Australia. Landed on South. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah. South Australia.
It's getting a bit hoarse.
Is it hoarse, is it?
Hey. Yeah. I'll just heckle from the background.
Yeah. How do you know the pony has a sore throat?
Because it's hoarse?
Because it's a little horse.
Oh, that's lovely. I love it. Dad jokes.
It's not a dad joke.
Oh, it's a great dad joke.
It is a dad. Whyalla business community remains positive despite uncertainty around Steelworks' financial future. Business owned. Am I doing the whole thing?
Yeah, why not?
I don't know anything about this, Jake.
Oh, I can do it.
Anything about Steelworks? What do you think? I spend the week delving into aged care and all those sorts of things. Not Steelworks. I don't even know where Whyalla is.
In South Australia.
Well, I know that now.
Well, yeah, okay. So a few years ago, Craig Emerson, former parliamentarian, former Labor parliamentarian, stood in front of journalists and decided to sing the Skyhooks classic horror movie. Remember that? Horror movie
right there on my TV. Horror movie right there. Yep.
So
horror movie. Yep.
Yeah. He slightly changed the words to be "No Whyalla wipe out" right there on my TV. Yeah, it was very.
Well, it really rolls off the tongue. He's a poet, isn't he?
It was very, very awkward, and he sang, a good 50, 60 seconds of it, and it was just repeating that same line. But essentially, he was
cringy moments in history.
He was doing it to essentially ridicule the opposition's campaign against the carbon tax, which was essentially saying. The opposition were Labor was in power. The opposition was saying, hey, look, if you bring in this carbon tax, areas like Whyalla that has, Australia's largest steelworks, they're going to be wiped out.
Yes.
They're going to be wiped out. And Craig Emerson,
good.
he stood there and he said, no Whyalla wipeout there on my TV.
Right. Okay.
Over and over and over
So
again.
a bit of background to Whyalla. That's good.
Yeah. Too much background, some might say.
No, I don't think so, Jake. That's what we do at this podcast. We take our time. We make sure that everyone has the relevant information so that they can.
We're all on the same. We're all the same thing.
Yeah.
But yes, it seems that Sanjeev Gupta's GFG Alliance, which is one of the biggest lenders of steelworks companies. Two steelworks companies.
Right.
So
I'm a steelworks company. I want to borrow some money. I go to GFG. Yep.
Yeah. GFG, Sanjeev Gupta's GFG Alliance.
Yep. So
that's where you go.
Yep.
You get your steelwork books in order.
Yep.
And you go there and you say, I need money. And they say, well, I'm not sure that we should lend you some money because steel, we can make it anywhere.
Can you?
Some say we can make it.
John's making it in his shed, in his
batch.
home brewery. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got AstraZeneca and steel.
We just do it there. But essentially, these Whyalla companies are starting to really suffer, not because of the coronavirus, although that is part of it. With China slowing down their growth, they don't necessarily have the same requirements for the steel that Australia makes and ships over to China. Of course, Australia is currently going through a housing boom. But that is not enough to make the sort of dent that we need in when you compare that to China. So yes, this one particular steelworks called Whyalla Steelworks is suffering incredibly, and this story is essentially about the mayor of Whyalla.
Right.
He's asking the state government for help. They want certainty for Whyalla Steelworks.
What does he want the mayor to do? Oh no, is the mayor asking for help?
The mayor is asking the state government. He's saying, "I want you.
But
I
what
want
does he
you,
want him to
state
do?
government,
Order more steel
to intervene. Go guarantor on. Well,
that's their fault. That's their fault for overestimating how much steel China would want.
Well, is it?
Yes.
I mean, you can base estimations on trends, Greg.
I can. Yeah, maybe.
And it should have been, had somebody, some of our backbench friends, our backbench colleagues not stood up and said, hey, China, you need to sort your stuff out, and called them out. No, it still would have halted, because essentially, even though China is quite grumpy at Australia at the moment, steel is one thing that they haven't necessarily reduced significantly. Copper they have, but not necessarily steel.
No,
but
they're very proud of their steel, Jack. I'm on their website now. It's literally the second or third attraction following dolphin watching. Yeah, you can go and see some dolphins. Yeah, and then they have steelwork tours. Whyalla family has shown the city steelwork tours are great for visitors and locals alike.
Yeah, it's like Mount Isa in Queensland. The attraction is the
stuff that's there.
Yeah, the stuff that they dig out. No, it's beautiful, Mount Isa. I love Mount Isa.
Doesn't Mount Isa's got heaps, doesn't it? Like zinc and all sorts of stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah, zinc, lead, bit of lead.
Yeah, a bit of lead. Yeah, we all love lead.
Like that anecdote, or like that thing from the castle. How's your soil, Dale? Oh, yeah, good. Know much about lead?
So anyway, what they do, they have I've got a picture of the steelworks here. I can't believe I'm seeing it with my own eyes. It can provide many amazing sites. You should see the sites I'm looking at the moment. There's a lot of brown, Jake, in
a lot of brown being turned into blue.
All right. Now, steelworks site tours are every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9:30 a.m., except for public holidays. Bookings essential.
I got to say, I wonder what
maybe the bookings can subsidise the.
Yeah, maybe they could. I do just wonder what the demand for tours is.
Can you buy? Maybe they could sell souvenirs made
girders,
out of steel. Yeah.
Little mini girders.
Yeah,
I like that. Paperweights. Why don't they move into paperweights? Actually, why don't they go even smaller? Why don't they go into paper clips?
Well, I mean, you can increase demand that way, can't you? You can't, you can have the big things that the rich people want, then you have the small things like the paper clips. I wonder if you can adopt some steel while you're there.
Yeah, adopt some steel. I love that idea. Works with highways.
Yeah.
Adopt a highway. Yeah. Adopt some steel.
Yeah. Adopt some steel. Anyway, you can get right onto that. Costs $25 for adults, Concession is $21, which is nice. Children are $15. Family $65. That's 2 adults and 2 children, so it doesn't really count.
No, that's good. That'll go a long way because they only have to make up US $10 billion.
I think it's important to note, Jake, that children must be 7 years of age or over.
That is important.
No, you can't take. I can't even take my kids there, Jake. We're gonna have to leave the little one outside. She might steal something.
Hey, no, that's good. Look, if you put some steel that's heavy enough on top of her, she won't move. So that way, you can just leave her there, go on the tour, come back, lift that heavy steel off her.
Is that where we're going, Jake?
Well, look, I'm just.
Is that where we went?
Look, I knew, Greg, that you wanted to go on the tour, and you wanted to take the rest of your family.
She didn't want to steal anything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, she can't steal something she can't lift.
No, that's right. Do you even
it's
lift?
the old adage.
Yeah.
Sun Tzu. Exactly. Do you even lift, bro? Yeah.
Now, Whyalla was founded as Hummocks Hill and was known by that name until 1916. It is the 4th most populous city in the Australian state of South Australia. As of June,
what are the other popular cities in
Adelaide?
Yep.
Launceston. Does Kangaroo Island count as a city?
Yes.
Yes.
Why not?
Yeah. That's third.
Yeah.
It is a seaport.
And the airport.
Oh, look, the Steelworks has its own Wikipedia page, Jake. I mean, I could go on. I could do a whole episode on
I don't know where we're not.
Oh, I think this one is.
I feel like we are.
1.2 million tons of raw steel is produced at the steelworks each year, with about 65% of that transferred by rail.
Oh, that's more than one.
That's more than people that have been vaccinated in Australia.
Yeah.
Here we go. Dust emissions from the steelworks became a controversial topic in 2005 after legislation was rewritten to nullify a legal battle between One Steel and the South Australian Environmental Protection Agency. The steelworks is open to the public. I like the way that's still part of the same paragraph. It's not separate.
Yeah. Bit of steel in the air here, guys, but you can still, you're okay to do the tours. Just, cover your face.
I mean, look, Whyalla.
And we have steel face masks.
Well, yeah.
Keep you
safe.
Not?
Yeah. Whyalla. Why not?
Yeah. Love it. That's the slogan.
We'll steal your heart.
Come for the steel. Stay because you're stuck under something too heavy. Somebody's put it on top of you.
Stay because you inhaled too much dust.
Yep.
Steel dust.
Bit of dust in the air. Need a steel respirator? We've lost Greg.
Okay. That was very good. Oh, dear me. All right. So anyway, Whyalla, why not? Jake, thank you so much for chatting with me today about all of the really important things
steel.
that come up. Yeah, particularly steel. Best of luck to Daniel Andrews. We hope that he gets well very soon. Best of luck to everyone else out there. Hope you're not feeling too lonely. If you are feeling lonely, you can send us an email to thepouchofthepodcast@gmail.com because our inbox is pretty lonely sometimes. But feel free to do that and talk about what we'd like to hear on the show. Talk about what we might have got wrong. You got any questions for me and Jake? What's our favourite colour? The favourite.
How many years did John Howard actually sit as Prime Minister?
Yeah. What is fashion?
Yeah. Yes.
And what are the top 10 things to do in Whyalla?
South Australia. Yeah, exactly.
Brandon Payne, we hope you kept you company as well. He said, thank you guys, we're awesome. Thank you, Brandon, you're awesome as well. And yes, we are seeing your messages. We hope that you subscribe. And we can chat again next time. Jake, I feel like you better go. And so that we both better go and eat some food, I think, after a long day of work.
I'm awake, Greg. I don't know what you're saying.
We're good. All right. Peace out, my friend. Thanks, and thank you so much. And see you later, everybody else.
Yes. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, listeners.
Bye.